My name is David Gagnon. I'm one of the Vancouver Lego Clubbers from Vancouver, Canada. We're standing in front of the wall. And the idea for this came around the end of season 4, a couple of years ago, when the television season ends with this sort of grand battle where all the wild people of the north attack the wall. And we were inspired to sort of try and capture that moment. Although you'll notice as we move around that there are bits from different timelines and different episodes, and even a few things from the books that don't happen in the movies, and things like that.
And this is Game of Thrones, right?
Absolutely. So this is the big ice wall from Game of Thrones. And in Game of Thrones, the Southerners, in this sort of epic moment of xenophobia, build a giant ice wall to keep all the North people out of the South. There's a little political commentary here to be made, I'm sure, but this was written and filmed long before Trump suggested his wall. So we got the idea, and in Game of Thrones, the ice wall is the largest man-made structure in this universe. So when we were thinking of building something from Game of Thrones, we thought, why not go big, right? We'll build the biggest structure in Game of Thrones. Looking around online, we saw a few people had already done the ice wall, but nobody had done it on a sort of big minifigure scale, trying to flesh it out and detail it on this level. So we spent a lot of time talking about scale, how we were going to build something that would seem big enough, but still be viable. And we settled on this, which is 5 Lego base plates tall. It's about 4.5 feet tall for the wall. And we had a lot of conversations around scale, but really, I guess what it came down to was we wanted minifigures to really feel dwarfed by it, and we wanted people themselves to feel dwarfed by it when they saw it at an event. And so the wall is taller than the average person, maybe taller than anybody in the room, when it's sitting up on a table. So people really feel like they're looking at something grand when they come in. And we couldn't really go bigger because of part limitations and cost limitations, and we couldn't really go smaller because it wouldn't have looked right. And referring back to the source material, the book describes the wall as being 700 feet tall. So if it was really minifigure scale, it would actually be 4 times taller than what you're seeing here. But coming back to the issues of scale, if we had built it 4 times taller, we'd be scraping the ceiling in this exhibit hall. We would have needed ladders to set it up, and it would have cost $100,000 in bricks to build it. So it wasn't going to happen. Hopefully you guys will be able to get a shot of the inside framework. But once we'd sort of settled on a scale, it was time to come up with a design. And what we thought of was just using a really simple Technic skeleton, like a series of boxes built out of Technic beams, and then taking Lego base plates, covering them in white, and then just sticking them onto the Technic skeleton. So maybe in a minute here, I'll pop one of the plates off so you guys can get a look at how the thing is built. And after that, it's really just a lot of detail. So while it's big, it's really quite simple. The wall came together probably in, let's say, 60 or 70 build hours shared among 3 of us, right in the middle of my Lego room, and it took up all the floor space in my Lego room. And we were kind of like walking around it for a long time. And apart from that, we built stuff separately. So I prepared a lot of the landscaping and the trees. One of the other builders, Keith Reed, did Castle Black. And then our third builder, Dave Geddes, did the top battlements for the wall. And then some of the really nice details like the weirwood tree and the mammoths and the giants. And the first time it all came together was at BrickCan, the first Lego convention in Vancouver that we had in April 2006. And so we brought all our pieces together, and it took us a long time to make it all work. But we did it just in time for public hours. And then, of course, the last couple of days here, we brought it all together a second time. It was so much easier the second time. And we actually made it quite a bit bigger here at BrickCon too. So we've got a larger table and a larger space allotment. So we stretched out the landscaping. We put out a lot more trees and a lot more minifigures. So about 500 minifigures on the display right now.
Yeah. Well, I think you guys did an amazing job with this. It's so impressive, just the scale of it and all the details as well. Something I really like is these trees. Can you talk a little bit more about that and kind of the design of those?
Yeah, absolutely. So looking at these cheese trees, we can't take credit for this. A few people did it before us. And it all started when the Pick-a-Brick wall got both the 1x1 brick with studs on 4 sides and the sand green cheese wedge. And of course, the rest is history, right? If you pop 1,000 of these together, you get a branch. And then you take a column and you alternate 1x1 brick with studs on 4 sides, and then a 1x1 brick with no extra studs, and you just work your way up. And of course, there's a couple of different versions. People have built these in different ways. People have done some with, like if you go over to this higher density tree over here, this one's using a slightly different technique so that you've got 8 branches sticking out of every level instead of 4, so you get a much thicker look. And really, you mix them up, and it all looks fantastic. And I'm sure there's probably other techniques that people have come up with to do the inner core to get slightly different branch setups.
Right. And now this has a great kind of round base around it. So we've seen this side over here. What's on the other side of the base and on the other side of the wall here?
So coming around here to the north side, what we're seeing on this side is the forest and the hearth tree that's here in the forest. And so this is roughly, in terms of the timeline, this is the end of Book 4, the end of Season 4, where all the wildlings of the north are coming to attack the gate. And they're all of the mindset that they're all going to die in the winter that's coming. So they're trying to do a mass migration south, but of course the wall is in their way, so they get the idea that they're all going to work together. Mammoths, giants, humans, everybody, and they're going to bust down the gate and start moving south. And so there's this massive battle that erupts in front of the gate as the Night's Watch, who are pledged for life to protect the wall from the Northerners, are dropping barrels of fire and raining arrows down on the wildlings, who are charging relentlessly at the gate, using their mammoths to try and rip the gate off the hinges, using giants to try and lift the gate. They'll do anything, right, to get south. And of course, they're climbing the wall as well. And we see that at many parts or several parts during the Game of Thrones series and books. We see people climbing up and over the wall in this sort of like epic feat of 700-foot ice climb to get up and over the top.
I noticed over here you've got kind of a cool little scene, which is them shooting the show sort of with a camera setup and all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. We felt we had to add a film crew in here just to give it that little Easter egg, right? And of course, there are other things to be found too that have nothing to do with Game of Thrones that are just sort of tossed in, they're just in there for fun. But the film crew is there just to remind people that, whatever, right? Sorry, I'm not being very eloquent. I lost my train of thought there.
That's fine. Yeah. So you got it there because they were shooting the whole TV show and all of that. And can you talk a little bit more about the minifigs here as well? Because I noticed you've got maybe some custom, is that kind of capes and stuff on some of these figs?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not opposed to a little bit of customization here and there. So I've got a few Brickforge weapons mixed in here, and I've got a lot of capes that I cut out myself. I printed some patterns that looked like sewn leather and that looked like sort of woven bark, things that the wildlings might be making with found materials. And I cut out a couple of dozen capes and added them onto, for the most part, just basic Lego City minifigures, just as a way to get more sort of bulk into the population of wildlings. There's only a handful of Lego figures that actually look like wildlings, so we've got a whole bunch of the orcs from the Lord of the Rings series here with the heads swapped out. We've got a whole bunch of the Inuit Ice Fisher from Collectible Minifigures Series 3 with a couple of parts swapped out, and then a whole bunch of regular sort of castle figures, a couple of Robin Hood parts, really anything that we could throw together to look like people who live far north in a foresty environment without a lot of metal work.
Yeah, that's really neat. I think it came together quite nicely. So is it possible to show the inside there? I know you mentioned earlier possibly showing some of the Technic on the inside.
Yeah, absolutely. If you guys want to get a little video snippet of the gate opening, I could do that. And then I can pop a wall panel off for you to have a look at what it looks like inside. So the gate absolutely works, and it's movable. And of course, we won't leave it open like that, or the wildlings will just start swarming in there, and that would be kind of problematic, at least for this part of the story. And which panel do you want me to pull? Something that you guys...
Whichever one makes it not fall apart.
Yeah. This one's already halfway off. So let's take this one off right here.
There you go.
So the wall is basically completely hollow. There's about 1,000 Technic pieces inside building a framework, and then about another 10,000 white pieces to skin the outside of the frame. For the camera there, if you go in from the back as well, you'll get a much more interesting view, like right down the inside of the frame. And I'll pop this back. The outside of the wall is about 30 Lego base plates, all covered in white. On each side, 60 in total, and then another 6 across the top, also skinned in white.